worst yet to come. The slow-moving storm drenching the coast, expected to drop an additional foot of rain. Water already topping levees, spilling into neighborhoods.
Look at the storm surge here on Lake Pontchartrain. Huge waves on top of a 5 to 6 foot surge.
Structures just blown away. The life-threatening flash flooding and warnings from officials this morning.
New York City blackout, the Big Apple losing juice. Pedestrians stepping in to control the chaos. Subway passengers stuck underground. Times Square's famous billboards blank.
Hi guys, so we're backstage. They just told me to get off stage.
Even J-Lo's show canceled. What caused the power to blow?
ICE crackdown. Deportation raids now underway. Federal agents looking to round up thousands of undocumented immigrants.
Close that camp!
Emotions running high with a deadly shooting outside this migrant detention center.
Wild shootout. Officers attempting to pull over a suspect met with gunfire. An officer ducking for cover. What they found in that car.
And dramatic rescue. Look at this. The heroes who sprang into action to save a baby and a toddler from this burning building right there at the right time.
Live from ABC News in New York, this is Good Morning America.
And good Sunday morning, everybody. Let's get right to our breaking news. The Gulf Coast underwater. Tropical storm Barry crawling north through the state of Louisiana right now, bringing torrential rain and the potential for life-threatening flash flooding.
This is not your usual hurricane story. You're looking at video here from an area near where the eye of the storm came ashore as a Category 1 hurricane. However, the main danger right now is not from high winds, but instead, as was alluding to, from all that rain. There is up to a foot more to come here as locals brace for those dangerous floods.
Overnight rescues underway. Crews in this helicopter airlifting 12 people and 2 pets. We have team coverage this morning. Let's go straight to Rob, who kicks things off for us from New Orleans. Good morning to you, Rob.
Hey, good morning to you, Eva. Well, here it is, the biggest byproduct of Barry, and that is the rainfall, albeit raining lightly here in New Orleans. The heavy stuff extends all the way into Alabama and deep into Mississippi. Barry took its sweet time getting here, didn't it? Made it to hurricane strength, though, and unfortunately now the impacts of this storm are going to last a while longer.
This morning, Louisiana feeling the brunt of Tropical Storm Barry's wind and rain. Watch as this plane hangar gets blown away in Iberia Parish. Up to 7 feet of storm surge inundating homes in Terrebonne Parish. People wading through floodwaters and cars left stranded.
This storm still has a long way to go before it leaves the state.
The Coast Guard airlifting civilians to safety, rescuing 12 people so far. Levees struggling and some failing to hold back Barry's unrelenting push of water.
Look at the storm surge here on Lake Pontchartrain. Huge waves on top of a 5 to 6 foot surge. South winds just ripping off the lake, pushing water deep into this neighborhood.
Vicious winds tearing through communities across the state, blowing this roof onto a parked car and overturning an RV. Trees collapsing onto homes.
She was sleeping, and when she heard it, she knew it was her house. Everything shook. I think the neighbor's house shook.
And hundreds of thousands left without power. Local officials urging caution.
We are urging residents to shelter in place or make any decisions to move to our open shelters now.
What's your mindset now, knowing that you're going to have a couple of days of heavy rain in New Orleans?
There's a lot of problems for a lot of people, especially with the levee being so high already. Mother Nature is unpredictable.
It was early Saturday afternoon that Barry made landfall as a hurricane near intercoastal city, Louisiana. Now this slow-moving tropical storm set to dump flooding rain across the south.
The center of Barry right now, not even close to being out of the state of Louisiana. Here it is on the satellite radar composite just to the west of Alexandria, just to the south of Shreveport. And that moisture stream extends all the way back to the upper Texas coastline. So we've got to get all through that. In between some of these streamers, it's kind of dry. We're in a spell of that right now, but flood watches do extend all the way into Missouri and southern Illinois, Paducah, Memphis, Tupelo, Greenville. You're going to get tropical storm warnings as well. They're still up for especially south-facing shores because this southerly wind will continue to push that water up and the storm surge will still be an issue. So here's the track of it, basically up into Arkansas slowly, but the rain bands spiral up the Mississippi through Memphis and into the Ohio River Valley eventually, but then we kind of reset things tomorrow with heavy tropical rains, potentially from Lake Charles across the Atchafalaya towards Baton Rouge, and then streaming up the mid-Mississippi Valley right on through tomorrow night. Tremendous amount of rain there, but most of the heavy rain is going to be across the deep south. Could see a foot of it here, and the question is, will the bayous be able to hold that here in New Orleans? Will those pumps that pump the water out of this below sea level area hold it as well? Eva?
All right, thank you, Rob. Now let's go further inland to ABC's Alex Perez, who's in Baton Rouge, where major flooding is a concern. Alex, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Eva. It has been a soggy 24 hours here in Baton Rouge. The on-again, off-again rain has essentially not stopped since it started. The storm has already toppled trees, toppled utility poles. A lot of people have spent the last day stuck in their homes following that directive from authorities to shelter in place. And here is the bad news. We are not in the clear just yet. This storm is not over. It is lingering, and flooding is still a major, big concern here. We're going to have to follow this storm, watch it closely for at least the next 24 hours. Eva?
All right, thanks, Alex. And we'll have more on Barry in just a few minutes, including a live report from Morgan City.
We're going to turn now, though, to a story that affected many of us overnight. A huge power outage right here in New York City. The blackout cut AC in the middle of a sweltering summer. It trapped people in elevators, created huge traffic jams, and even cut short a WJLA concert. So what caused this mess? Let's get it over to ABC's Ariel Reshef, who's here with more. Ariel, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Dan. From traffic lights to elevators to subways to concerts, the city partially paralyzed as tens of thousands of customers suddenly lost power on a hot summer night, forcing many into dark streets and others to wait for hours for relief.
This morning, New Yorkers relieved the lights are back on after the city plunged into darkness overnight.
We have a smoking transformer right in the middle of the intersection. Multiple buildings without any power.
Just before 7, a power outage striking the west side of Manhattan.
We experienced a significant disturbance at one of our electric transmission stations that eventually interrupted power to approximately 73,000 customers.
The governor deploying state police and the National Guard to the city. Emergency crews responding to multiple reports of people trapped in elevators.
There are people trapped in elevators in both towers. All elevators are clear. They have no power.
Mayor Bill de Blasio pausing on the campaign trail in Iowa, assuring residents.
All of our emergency personnel are being deployed to address the situation.
The blackout shutting off traffic lights at busy intersections, pedestrians stepping into direct traffic. Subway stations experiencing extended delays, while many passengers were stuck underground. Some subways only illuminated by the lights in the train cars, while other stations dealt with malfunctioning turnstiles. Times Square billboards, known for their bright and flashy lights, pitch black. A number of businesses and restaurants closed for the night, but for these ticket holders, it was a chance to see a Broadway show outside. Even the famed Carnegie Hall evacuated, an impromptu concert ensuing in the street by the Millennial Choir.
Here we go.
A citywide power outage. We're going to interrupt this event.
The blackout even halting a Jennifer Lopez concert at Madison Square Garden.
The show started out fantastic, but after 15 to 20 minutes of the actual show, the lights shut out.
J-Lo taking to social media to address her fans.
Hi guys, so we're backstage. They just told me to get off stage. They're asking everybody to evacuate very slowly and calmly.
Governor Andrew Cuomo applauding how residents reacted to the blackout.
When you're talking about a city like New York with a significant piece of the city basically suffering a blackout, that could be a very chaotic situation. We saw the exact opposite, actually. We saw New Yorkers at their best.
You really did there. Con Edison said power was restored around midnight to all customers. They're still investigating exactly what caused this outage. By the way, I want to show you something. Take a look at this headline from 1977. New York experienced a massive power outage on the very same day, July 13th, 42 years ago. That one a lot more disruptive, although you may disagree, both of you, if it didn't have power this morning.
I didn't sleep.
Yeah, but guys, there's some good news this morning. J-Lo has rescheduled her concert at Madison Square Garden.
That's exactly what I was worried about.
Most important piece of info.
Last night when I couldn't sleep, I was like, is J-Lo going to...
Jenny from the block, guys.
Yeah, I got to see it.
I was holding my little fan laying in bed going, please, come on.
The worst part was I had to take an antsy 4-year-old up 27 flights of stairs. Yeah, it might have been my wife who did most of the carrying. Me.
But he felt like it was Star Wars.
Can't quite remember. No, he just thought it was annoying. Anyway, here's the papers today. This is the Daily News. The lights go out on Broadway. Very similar headline over at the New York Post. Lights out on Broadway. So the entire city talking about it.
It's a weird look to look out and see nothing but black.
It was kind of amazing, actually.
And your hamstring will be all right after the staircase. Ice it up, you'll be good.
You're looking a little more swole this morning,
He doesn't
Dan.
seem really concerned.
I'm not that concerned. Other folks have it
We're
worse.
feeling sorry for you.
Ariel, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. Some other stories we do want to get to, though, this morning. To immigrant communities across the country bracing for an ICE crackdown to kick into high gear now. Those deportation raids sparking new protests overnight. ABC's Clayton Sandell is in our Los Angeles bureau with that story. Clayton, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Those raids are expected to kick off this morning, but ICE says what it calls enforcement surges focused on fugitives happen every day, including an operation that just wrapped up in San Diego with the arrest of 20 people. But now mayors in some of the targeted cities say what President Trump is doing now is a political stunt, spreading real fear through immigrant communities coast to coast. Across the country, the Trump administration crackdown is sparking protests as federal ICE agents begin an operation reportedly looking to arrest and deport up to 2,000 undocumented immigrants in major U.S. cities.
We are really specifically looking for bad players, but we're also looking for people that came into our country not through a process. They just walked over a line. They have to leave.
Close the camps!
Emotions are running hot following protests at a Tacoma migrant detention center. Police shot and killed a man armed with a rifle. Officers say he tried to use devices to set fire to the building and cars.
I don't know what his motivation was or why anyone would try to set a concrete building on fire.
The raids are something candidate Trump promised supporters during the election.
Within ICE, I am going to create a new special deportation task force.
But big city mayors who say local cops won't be helping ICE agents believe the president is playing the worst kind of politics, the kind that could break families apart.
Disrupting families who are just here trying to live their life, that's not who we are or should be as Americans.
My message to Washington is use our resources to go after the dangerous criminals that we need to all find. We want to get those sharks out of the ocean, not a bunch of guppies.
Even legal immigrants like Luz Martinez worry.
We're afraid that we'll be separated from our loved ones.
Advocacy groups are now leading protests and making sure undocumented immigrants know their rights.
People need to be prepared and know that they do not have to open the door. They do not have to let ICE officers inside.
And this morning, many churches are offering people sanctuary from ICE agents, and immigrant rights groups are mobilizing attorneys and setting up hotlines to offer legal advice to anyone caught up in the sweeps. Dan?
Clayton, thank you very much. Let's bring in ABC News Chief White House Correspondent Jonathan Karl, who's going to be hosting This Week later this morning. John, good morning. Critics are saying that this is a political stunt, as Clayton was saying, but you cover the White House every day. I would imagine the president and the people around him think actually here the politics play well for them.
Well, there's no question, and in two sense here. First of all, the president, as you heard Clayton mention in his piece there, campaigned on being tough on the immigration laws, specifically on aggressively deporting those who are in the country illegally. And also, they're looking to create a deterrent for more migrants to come into the United States by sending the message, even if you get in, you may face deportation. But Dan, there's a reality here that Donald Trump has actually deported considerably fewer people than Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, The numbers just don't bear out what he's talking about, a massive wave of deportations. We'll see what happens beginning today. The numbers that we've heard from ICE, 2,000 people targeted. That, again, is considerably smaller numbers than what we saw during the last of the last 5 presidential administrations. He is the lowest in terms of deportation.
Let's talk about another big political story this morning, and what will be a political story for quite a while now. The Democrats running for president. I think there are about 75,000 of them.
Roughly,
at this point, you've got 2 of them on the show this morning. The newest entrant, a billionaire by the name of Tom Steyer, and then Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. We're months away from the caucuses in Iowa, but still, some people are saying, like, we've got a top 5, and everybody below that probably can't crack the top 5. So what's your view? Can somebody like Steyer or Klobuchar, can they make a move still?
I mean, look, it's still early. It's very difficult. This is an extremely crowded field. Joe Biden has been consistently at the top, but has some real vulnerabilities. We're still at the point where anything can happen. And Dan, Tom Steyer is a real long shot here. Another political novice jumping into the race. But he is saying he is going to spend $100 million of his own money. That, Dan, is real money.
Yes, and it might buy you a few points in the polls. We'll see how it goes. John Carl, always a pleasure to speak with you, my friend. And I want to remind everybody, John has a big show this morning. He's going to go one-on-one with Trump immigration official Ken Cuccinelli. Plus, as mentioned, he will chat with 2 of the Democrats running for president, the aforementioned billionaire activist Tom Steyer, as well as Senator Amy Klobuchar. It's all coming up on This Week right here on ABC. Eva, over to you.
All right. And now to the terrifying police shootout caught on camera. Cops exchanging gunfire with a suspect following a wild police chase while 3 young children were in the back seat. ABC's Stephanie Ramos joins us with the details. Good morning, Stephanie.
Eva, good morning. The chase, the shootout, police say it happened in just a matter of minutes with 3 young kids caught up in the middle.
Gunfire breaking the silence in this quiet Tennessee neighborhood as a wild police chase comes to a dramatic end. Police say the chase began after officers stopped by an apartment on a report of shots fired. That's when 21-year-old Darian Williams took off in his car, allegedly refusing to stop for the officers behind him. The man's children, ages 3 and 2, plus a 9-month-old baby in the back seat. The chase coming to an end when a police SUV deliberately crashes into the back of the car. That's when police say Williams opened fire at the officer with a rifle, shooting through the car's front window. Now take a look from a second angle. You can see that officer diving away from the danger as authorities say Williams runs off, apparently uninjured, leaving his children behind. Bullets shattering windows in nearby homes.
We don't have violence. I've been here since 1988. I've never seen anything like this happen.
Miraculously, the children inside the car were found safe. No one was hit by the gunfire. Police say they caught Williams after searching the neighborhood.
Williams is charged with attempted murder of an officer, a felony for evading arrest, and 3 counts of child endangerment. The 3 young kids that police say were with him are said to be okay. Whit.
Thankfully, everybody's doing all right. Stephanie Ramos for us. Thanks so much. We want to get back to the weather. Rob Marciano is in New Orleans following Barry and its track. And Rob, we want to point out, you guys have been mentioning the fact that, this storm already made landfall, but the rain and flooding event is still an issue for hours to come.
That's right. I mean, really, and we said all this way that the backside of this is really where most of the action is. And you look at the satellite picture, it is still that way. Most of the action is still over the Gulf of Mexico, so very lopsided system. The northern part is the driest, then as it heads through Shreveport and eventually through Little Rock tomorrow, it'll drag that moisture with it. So these rain bands will continue to filter in, and they'll be spotty, in between some of these bands. It'll be dry at times, but generally speaking, a moisture plume, a fire hose, if you will be pointed in the direction of southeast Louisiana and much of Mississippi. And on the right-hand quadrant, brief tornadoes are possible. We had a number of tornado warnings last night here in the city of New Orleans, and it was certainly unnerving, to say the least. This system drifts off towards the north, and some of it, even though it weakens and fizzles out a little bit, some of that tropical moisture will get caught up in a frontal system that drags across the Great Lakes and eventually the Northeast on Wednesday. So much of the northeastern quadrant will at least get a little taste of Barry, but certainly not what we're seeing down here. That's an update on what's happening in NOLA. Time now for a look at your local forecast.
Well, hello and happy Sunday. Hey, not quite as nice as yesterday. We had pretty low humidity yesterday. It'll be a little bit more hot and humid this afternoon. High temperatures reaching the lower 90s by 3 o'clock this afternoon. Also can't rule out a stray storm, so have the Stormwatch 7 app handy. Let you know if any lightning's near your location. Temperatures in the 60s, outlying suburbs tomorrow morning, closer to the 70-degree mark, D.C., and closer to the Bay. Should be a mild start tomorrow morning as we get into next week. High temperatures into the 90s through much of the week.
South of our camera down Canal Street into the Mississippi.